Thor Odinson, more commonly known as Thor, and sometimes by his title as the God of Thunder, is a fictional character portrayed by Chris Hemsworth in the Marvel Cinematic Universe (MCU) media franchise, based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name and the Norse mythological god of the same name. In the MCU, he is depicted as one of the most powerful Asgardians, an ancient alien civilization with long ties to Earth, who humans consider to be gods. Thor wields a powerful hammer called Mjolnir, and is initially depicted as the arrogant heir to the throne of Asgard whose brash behaviors causes turmoil among the 9 realms under Asgard's protection. This brings him into conflict with his villainous adopted brother, Loki. Thor commits himself to the protection of Earth, and becomes a founding member of the Avengers. Thor eventually becomes the king of Asgard after Odin's death, but the entire realm is destroyed during Ragnarok. Following the blip, he passes the crown of New Asgard to Valkyrie and joins the Guardians of the Galaxy. As of 2022, Thor is a central figure of the MCU, having appeared in 8 films and will appear in the upcoming film Thor, Love and Thunder, 2022. The character received a mixed reception in his first 2 titular films, however Thor, Ragnarok, 2017, is often credited as positively rebooting Thor and his storyline, and he has since become a fan favorite. Alternate versions of the character appear in the animated series What If? 2021, with Hemsworth reprising the role. One version in particular, which depicts an alternate Thor who was raised without Loki and is recruited into the Guardians of the Multiverse by the Watcher in the battle against an alternate version of Ultron. Thor debuted as a Marvel Comics superhero in the science fiction/fantasy anthology titled Journey into Mystery No. 83, cover date August 1962, created by editor-plotter Stan Lee, scripter Larry Lieber, and penciler-plotter Jack Kirby. 8. Kirby said, "I created Thor at Marvel because I was forever enamored of legends, which is why I knew about Balder, Heimdall, and Odin. I tried to update Thor and put him into a superhero costume, but he was still Thor." 9. Lee and Kirby included Thor in the Avengers No. 1, September 1963, as a founding member of the superhero team. A live-action television adaptation of the comic book character first appeared in the 1988 television film The Incredible Hulk Returns. Live-action film adaptations of the character were thereafter proposed, but did not come to fruition. In the mid-2000s, Kevin Feige realized that Marvel still owned the rights to the core members of the Avengers, which included Thor. Feige, a self-professed fanboy, envisioned creating a shared universe just as creators Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had done with their comic books in the early 1960s. Mark Protasevich, a fan of the Thor comic book, agreed to write the script in April 2006, and the project moved to Paramount Pictures, after it acquired the rights from Sony. In December 2007, Protasevich described his plans for it to be like a superhero origin story, but not one about a human gaining superpowers, but of a god realizing his true potential. It's the story of an Old Testament god who becomes a New Testament god. Marvel Studios signed Matthew Vaughn to direct the film. Vaughn then rewrote Protasevich's script in order to reduce the budget. In September 2008, Kenneth Branagh entered into negotiations to direct, and by December 2008, Branagh confirmed that he had been hired. He described it as a human story right in the center of a big epic scenario. In October 2008, Daniel Craig was offered the role, but ultimately turned it down, citing his commitments to the James Bond franchise. In May 2009, Chris Hemsworth was in negotiations to portray the title role after a back-and-forth process in which the 25-year-old actor was refused early on, then given a second chance to read for the part. Hemsworth's brother, Liam, also auditioned for the role, but was passed on by Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige. Feige mentioned that the film would take place on both modern-day Earth and Asgard, but Thor's human host, Dr. Donald Blake, would not be included. Hemsworth stated that he gained 20 pounds for the role by eating non-stop and revealed that, "It wasn't until Thor that I started lifting weights, it was all pretty new to me." Thor, Love and Thunder is an upcoming American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Thor, produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is intended to be the direct sequel to Thor, Ragnarok, 2017, and the 29th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU. The film is written and directed by Taika Waititi, and stars Chris Hemsworth as Thor alongside Christian Bale, Tessa Thompson, Jamie Alexander, Waititi, Russell Crowe, and Natalie Portman. In the film, Thor attempts to find inner peace, but must return to action and recruit Valkyrie, Thompson, Korg, Waititi, and Jane Foster, Portman, who is now the mighty Thor, to stop Gore the God Butcher, Bale, from eliminating all gods. Hemsworth and Waititi had discussed plans for a sequel to Ragnarok by January 2018. Love and Thunder was announced in July 2019, with Hemsworth, Waititi, and Thompson all set to return, as well as Portman, who did not appear in Ragnarok. Waititi wanted to differentiate Love and Thunder from Ragnarok, seeking to make a romance film and 1980s-inspired adventure. He adapted elements from Jason Aaron's run on the Mighty Thor comic book, which sees Foster take on the mantle and powers of Thor whilst suffering from cancer. Jennifer K. Tin Robinson joined to contribute to the script in February 2020, and further casting was revealed later that year, including the appearance of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Production was expected to begin in late 2020 but was delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Filming ultimately began in January 2021 in Sydney, Australia, and concluded at the beginning of June. Following the events of Avengers: Endgame, 2019, Thor attempts to find inner peace, but must return to action and recruit Valkyrie, Korg, and Jane Foster, who has become the Mighty Thor, to stop Gore the God Butcher from eliminating all gods. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.